everyone. Welcome. We're going to be talking about Ahsoka week to week, the brand new Star Wars show as it airs. So this week we got two episodes of Ahsoka. We're going to be talking about part one, Master and Apprentice, and part two, Toil and Trouble. But with me, and it's going to be a week to week recurring guest spot, we have all the way from his home. I have Mr. Shaw, who was a former guest on this show. We've had him on for the Attack the Stack episodes. You've seen him talking about comic books. We've done a Star Trek podcast together. So we've been talking Trek, but now we're going to a galaxy far, far away.
Ooh.
Welcome, Shaw. How are you doing, sir?
Ooh, I'm good. I'm hanging out here in the Outer Rim, the uncharted region of space.
Yes.
And God, I'm so excited to talk about Ahsoka. I've done my homework, Vector.
And
I understood the assignment.
yes.
And I binge watched all of Rebels in preparation for Ahsoka. And I'm glad I did, because it really helps appreciate this show a lot better. And I know we're going to get into it, but I definitely feel like not having watched Rebels, for those that are in that camp, they're at a disservice big time.
That was actually going to be my very first question to you, so I'm glad you answered it right off the bat.
Yeah.
But actually, even before we get into Ahsoka, what were your overall thoughts on Rebels? What did you think of that as a show?
Rebels was great. Rebels was excellent. I had started Rebels a long time ago when it was first airing, like as episodes were dropping. But I fell away from it. I don't know what reason. I can't really give you an explanation other than life, right?
Yes.
Life took over. But I'd always wanted to come back to it. I always thought it was pretty good. I remember purchasing like the entire first season on
nice.
like Apple iTunes or whatever at the time. And so I remember watching it, but I decided to just start back over again when I was going to do the binge watch. And I'm glad I did, because I didn't remember like half of stuff. And it's kind of unique because we've seen some of these characters already in Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and so to see them in their animated form, like in their maybe potentially their earliest iteration, I was kind of, my timelines are a little skewed, right? Like, so I'm catching things in a weird order, but it hasn't affected my viewing experience. I think it's only improved it. But I haven't watched all of Clone Wars. I'm only maybe through like the first season of Clone Wars. So, so that aspect of like the timeline, I'm lacking, but
Gotcha.
But Rebels, loved every bit of it. Every character was interesting to me. At first I wasn't a big fan of Ezra, but he grew on me. He's not a character that I liked right away.
Right. Yeah.
But I think he's kind of written that way. So I think that just sort of lends it. He's sort of just that sort of precocious, rebellious teen or whatever. So but along the way, as you grow with him, it's definitely something where you see him sort of come into his own. And and so it was a great show. I loved it. Yeah.
And Ezra, I think, is one of the main characters that, if you don't know anything about Rebels, if you hadn't watched it, in order to prepare for Ahsoka, there's, I would say, three, besides Ahsoka herself, there's three characters that you need to know about. Thrawn, Ezra, and Sabine Wren.
Yes.
I think if you know those characters, from what we've seen from these first two episodes, it looks like the main narrative push is going to be, where is Ezra, where is Thrawn, and then how does Sabine herself come into her own, and how does she?
Yes.
It looks like, from what we saw from the end of part two, it looks like she's going to be starting to be trained again as a Jedi. So I think if you have that, core the trio, if you know them, I think you're set for Rebels. So I'm glad that you binged, though. I'm glad you went through all 4 seasons of Rebels.
Oh yeah, and Thrawn especially, I think that's my most favorite takeaway from the show, is that having experienced Thrawn and all of his brilliance, he's such a calculating, interesting villain. With motivation, like he understands his enemy in a way that other characters in the Empire never did. And he's just such an intriguing character to me. So I'm really excited to see him in live action. He's been hinted at for quite some time in Mandalorian, multiple ways. Just in the most recent season of Mandalorian, as well as in the second season of Mandalorian. So
And
very,
that
very
was,
excited.
I think that anticipation for Thrawn is something that at the time when those things were airing, Mandalorian and things, like you said, you hadn't seen Rebels or even the his original, which they now call Legends. The original canon was he was created for the novels, the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire novels. But he actually even has a comic book series that came out in 2018. If anyone's interested, so there is a ton of Thrawn stuff that's out there. There's a ton of Thrawn content, but when that was announced, when Thrawn was announced as being in the live action, when first of all, when we heard his name, and then in the trailers for Ahsoka, when we saw the actor, in live action, everybody lost their minds. So I think
Oh yeah.
now Shoff is right there with us. We can have a collective
Now it's the guy
excitement.
who is doing the live action. He also did the voice in Rebels. Am I correct?
Yes, that's
Okay,
right.
that's what I thought, and that to me seals the deal because that Thrawn voice is like if you don't have that, it's kind of like Gambit to me in X-Men.
Mm,
Like if you want to cast Gambit, you better do it right with the
yes,
Cajun accent.
right.
That's where it kind of fell flat on X-Men Origins. They had Taylor Kitsch play him and didn't really do that, and it didn't land. And I'm a big Gambit fan, so like you're gonna do Gambit right, you better have the accent. You're gonna do Thrawn right, you better have that slow, very calculating. Like he doesn't get upset.
Right.
He like
And
you don't see that side, and that to me, like that the boiling under the surface that you don't see, like that's what makes him so interesting to me.
right. And not necessarily like a physical presence of a villain. He's more, like you said, calculating and intelligent villain.
Yes,
So that's something that we haven't necessarily seen too much of in Star Wars. Most villains are physically imposing, they're swinging lightsabers, using force lightning, things like that. So I think Thrawn is an excellent addition to this Star Wars universe. That actor that you mentioned that actually voices and is going to be playing him is Lars Mikkelsen. He
right.
is the older brother of Mads Mikkelsen, who also played, among a ton of other things, but he was in Rogue One.
Yep, he
He has a
played
Star Wars history.
Daddy
So
Urso, right? Daddy Urso.
yes,
Yeah.
the the Mickelsons
Yes.
are staking their claim in the Star Wars universe. They're flying the Mickelson flag is flying. But I'm right there with you. I think the voice is 100% something that and that even in this first episode, part 1, Master and Apprentice, when we saw Clancy Brown,
Yes.
I first of all, Clancy Brown's one of my favorite voices of all time. So when I heard his voice and then I saw him and he's playing the same character that he played in I think it was in I have Rebels and Clone Wars in my mind like they're the same thing. It's all one timeline to me. So I have them mixed up because I was talking to you off mic about something. I was like, "Oh yeah, that appeared in Rebels, but it was Clone Wars where it appeared."
Right.
But yeah, the voice is so important to an actor. So it's just one of those tools that an actor can call upon it. And when you have that God given voice, like Shaw, when you have that wonderful tool, it's awesome to be able to utilize it. But um, you mentioned Gambit. The first thing I thought about was remember when Channing Tatum was going to play
Yeah.
Gambit? And what would that have been like? And would he have been trying to do a Cajun accent? But we
It
don't
would
have
have
to think
been
about
Channing Tatum.
it. Ooh, one of
Well,
my
I
one of my
hope
favorite.
I think he's going to be in Deadpool 3. That's
Oh
the rumor.
yes, yes, yes.
So I think we'll get to see it. I just hope that it's like a screen accurate costume. I'm sorry, comic accurate costume on screen,
Right.
and we get the accent. Let's just have it. I want it. I want it. Give it to me.
I can't
So,
wait.
oh yeah.
Yes. So let's get into this first episode of Ahsoka. Like I said, part 1, Master and Apprentice, and this is really. I saw this meme before and I sent it. I think I sent it to you, or I posted on Instagram.
Yeah.
This really feels like season 5, like
Yes.
of Rebels. Like it's going right into where season 4 left off. So what were your thoughts on the first episode, Master and Apprentice?
Well, real quick, touching on what you're saying there. So, in many ways, it is season 5 of Rebels, but the way episode 2 ends, not to like jump too far ahead, but the way episode 2 ends tells me something else. It tells me that the events of Ahsoka, the events of Mandalorian, all of that stuff is happening within the time jump that takes place at the end of Rebels. I
Okay.
think that the scene that happens at the end of episode 2 is actually the same moment from Rebels. I don't think it's a scene that's meant to look like it. I think it's meant to be it.
Mm.
And so the stuff that's happening in the first episode of Ahsoka, as well as leading into episode 2, and then the stuff that happened prior in Mando, Book of Boba Fett, all of that's happening within the Star Wars universe, or sorry, Star Wars galaxy. But within like that time jump that happens at the end of Rebels. So it's interesting. So like a lot of people are kind of on different paths on that, but I really believe that it's not that they just wanted to make a scene that looked like the end of Rebels. I think it is. I think that we're really getting that moment.
Yeah.
So, but the first episode, Master and Apprentice, they had a lot to do. A lot to do with to sort of introduce these characters, introduce the fact that Ahsoka, has kind of been on her own path, and also there's this gap of time and something that is introduced that really kind of threw me. And the fact that I had watched Rebels, I thought like I was going to be prepared, but then like there were things that were brought up that to me was like, what? The fact that Ahsoka had been training Sabine. I'm like, when did this happen? Because only briefly was she doing anything with Sabine that we saw on Rebels. Right. Really, her master in Rebels was Kanan.
Yes.
So I was like, what, did I miss something? Like, is there like, was there a season, an episode, something? But like, clearly that happened within the time gap that we haven't seen. So
yeah, I thought that too, because I was like, why is there like this standoffish relationship between them? Did I miss something? Did I not remember that in Rebels? So that it's always interesting when you start off in the middle of something, like in episode 4, or you start off and you're like, hey, what happened? And then it just piques your interest. So I'm curious to see, like you said, like you're saying, with this time jump, what exactly happened. But I think it's very clear to me we're in like the middle right now. We're in the middle of this Dave Filoni story, and they've already announced that he's going to have, his movie.
Yes.
Everything I think is going to be leading to that. And this whole series is written by him. Ahsoka was created by him. Rebels was, Clone Wars, Rebels, Mandalorian, and now Ahsoka. Like this whole Dave Filoni universe, I think is going to, as if we look back on it, once it's all said and done, I think everything is going to make a lot more sense. We're in the middle of it right now, but once everything is done, it's all going to fit together. I have faith in Filoni.
I do
call
too.
this the Filoni Files. But I thought this first episode was very competent. Like it was very not safe, but everything was even to me. Like nothing jumped out at me. It's like, oh, this is like, I think when I watched the very first episode of Mandalorian, it just felt like there was this new energy in the Star Wars universe. And then Baby Yoda at the end, the child being revealed. Like there was amazing moments in Mando. This one, it was like, okay, I feel safe in this Dave Filoni universe. We've seen Ahsoka before. This is not her debut. But the stuff that was new in this first episode was these two. Now, people have called them gray Jedi, the not dark Jedi. Like we don't know exactly what they are going to be called, but basically these former Jedi, Balin, Skull, and Shin-Hati, are looking for Lady Morgan Elsbeth, and she was in The Mandalorian. That was the very first time we saw Ahsoka. She was fighting Lady Elsbeth, and she was asking, "Where's Thrawn? Right. Where's Thrawn?" So, and that's what I'm saying. Like this whole Dave Filoni universe is going to fit together once we see everything. But what did you think about these new additions Balin, Shin, and then Elsbeth coming back.
So, I really like Balin, and also R.I.P. to Ray Stevenson, because this is the episode. I think even ends with
Yes,
"This is for you, Ray," or something like that.
Or it was like our friend Ray.
Yeah,
I was like,
exactly.
that
which
was
was
very
really
touching.
nice and very
Yeah.
touching. I thought he was excellent. I think he had a real stoic approach, and even the way that he was taking down these corridors of New Republic guards. I mean, he wasn't doing anything flashy. He was very precise. He was very deliberate, and that reminded me a lot of Darth Vader.
Yes,
in those corridor scenes, especially like Rogue One. Like Darth Vader in those moments, not like we see Anakin, because Anakin is very flashy. Like his lightsaber style is very flashy. But as Darth Vader, especially in the original trilogy, and then in Rogue One, he's much more precise. He doesn't do any extraneous movements, and that's how Balin Skull was to me. And I really like that, because I think that's scarier. Like he's so good that he doesn't have to move that much, like to accomplish his goal. And they didn't stand a chance against him. I don't care as much for his apprentice. But she's underdeveloped right now for me. She certainly is a hottie, but but other than that, she doesn't add much to it, other than that fact that he needs to have sort of like a sidekick. So I get it.
She gave me very much Darth Maul vibes, and sending her to the planet, hey, go search for her. She's got a probe droid with her.
Yeah, just
and
like that Phantom Menace moment. Yep.
She doesn't talk a lot. So it gave me like some member berries. Like I was like, yes, remember episode 1? Remember Darth Maul? Like she doesn't have the look, obviously, of Maul. He was the as soon as you saw his tattoos, it was like, whoa, this guy's impressive. She's more like subtle, laid back. But I want to see how they went, because the thing about Balin, when you're talking about him being stoic, I almost felt like he has something that we haven't seen yet, that he needs to be revealed, of why he turned to this side.
Yeah, that's true.
Of why he's not a Jedi anymore. Because I almost felt like he was remorseful. Like when he was talking to that guy, when he got onto the ship, and the guy's like, hey, you did a good act, but you ain't no Jedi. He was like, hey, don't do this. You don't want to do this. Like, versus if you were just pure evil, if you're on the dark side, you're just, all right, cut his head off. Like, you don't care. He was almost like, let's give these guys a chance. So I want to see, like, there's something behind Balin that we haven't, discovered yet. And I also want to discover the in-canon, in-universe reason for them having orange lightsabers, because specifically with the lightsaber crystals, was it, I can't remember if it was in Rebels or Clone Wars. In Rebels, do they have any lightsaber episodes where they're talking about the crystals? Because I know Ezra makes his lightsaber.
They briefly do, and I know that they see the Empire is collecting giant kyber crystals from Jeddah, to obviously to use for the Death Star. But that's the extent of it that we see in Rebels.
So there is a specific episode in Clone Wars, and that's where we first see Hu Yang, who is in this. He makes his live action debut here, voiced by David Tennant, and that character is so interesting to me. I'm actually going to be having a short come out. So if you're into Hu Yang and you're into the Star Wars lore, stay tuned to my channel. I'm going to be having a specific character breakdown of him. But I love David Tennant's voice, and I love that character. He goes back to the early days of the Jedi. I think it was like 20 years into 20 years after the Jedi were founded, Hu Yang was built. And so he's been with them the entire time. He's cataloged every lightsaber that's ever been built, with, I think, with the exception of Ezra and Luke, who came after his time, really. But this character is so interesting to me, and every lightsaber that has ever been built, they show the younglings building their lightsabers for the first time in the episode where he's introduced, and they have to pick their kyber crystal, and that determines the color of the blade. With the red lightsabers, they
Mhm.
changed it in the comic books. They changed it to, okay, now they have to bleed the lightsaber or the crystal. They have to bleed it to make it turn red. So, and actually, even in the video game that you just finished recently,
Jedi
Shaw,
Survivor, yeah, they show that. Yeah.
they show that. And I want to know, what is the orange, because we've never seen an orange crystal before in the canon. So I want to see what is going on with both of them. They both have orange lightsabers. And then this lady Elsbeth,
Yeah.
it's going to be very interesting to see her. Did she say she was a Night Sister? Did she say those words
I
in
think she
the
said that
episode?
her lineage. I don't know that
Okay.
she really said that she herself is, although she demonstrated that she has some witchy powers.
Yes.
So but it definitely her people are, or she comes from a line of the Night Sisters of Dathomir.
Yes.
So,
which also I love, because that goes back to Clone Wars. There's the whole backstory of the Night Sisters and Darth Maul and Dathomir and everything. And going into the video game, the last Night Sisters that are left that we know of are the one that you now I'm blanking on her name, but the one you fight with in the game. And then now it seems like Lady Elsbeth are the last two Night Sisters left. So that always is intriguing to me. Magic with a K.
yeah,
in Star Wars.
yeah, that threw me off when I was playing the game and encountering Marin.
Yes, Marin.
And I was like, what is she doing exactly? Like,
yes,
where is she getting this green power from?
Yeah. So, and that's like, we have the Force, on one side, and then we have this magic. Like, they're good opposite powers to have. I think you can put those against each other. So I want to see what Lady Elsbeth is up to, and all of the stuff with the map. And she was, all right, I know what's over there. Thrawn is over there. We got to find this. Who made that map? Where's all of these things coming from? Who is
By the
on
way,
the other side that she's talking about?
Speaking of that orb that Ahsoka finds, a couple things. First thing is, Ahsoka demonstrates a Force ability that I haven't seen anybody else do besides Cal Kestis, and that's the Force memory. So she's listening to memories of like stuff happening in that tomb or ruins that she found the artifact. She's also, when she's out by where Sabine gets stabbed by Shin
Oh, I
Hati.
want to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, we definitely need to talk about that. But she's out there and she's using that Force Echo ability, so she's like recalling the memories of the moment that were happening in that. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I've ever seen in live action somebody else do that. And I mean, we've seen Cal Kestis do it, and it was kind of his shtick. Like, that was sort of like a special thing that he was doing in the games. But I just don't. Maybe I'm mistaken. And of course, for the listeners, call me out in the comments, and if you have anything. But I just, it threw me off. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I was like, oh wow. So she's been working on her skills, I guess.
Yes, I do want to see more of that, and I'm always interested in Force powers as we grow the history of the Star Wars universe. That, like you said, that Force Echo or Sense Echo is interesting, and who can actually wield it and who can actually do it. Like you said, Cal Kestis is the biggest one. I guess Rey has it to an extent. Lightsaber in Force Awakens.
That's true.
And got, like, I think that's the only other live action time we've seen it. But yeah, that is very interesting to delve into and to see more of as the show progresses.
Yeah.
So
I also felt like that orb, the puzzle itself, was a little too easy to solve.
I saw people on TikTok making like, here's how to do it. It was just easy, like, snap the thing off.
It was like a baby's toy.
Yeah.
You're just matching up patterns. Like, I mean, just to me, I was like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, this doesn't seem too complicated. I don't know why she needed to have Sabine do it, but
yeah.
I mean, she can sense the memories of places and things. She can't sense the memory of when that was originally turned and made. Like, I just, the powers, like, there's the rules behind them is what we don't know. So like
Right.
how that
Right.
works. But
Yeah.
but all in all, it was great. And that tells us that Ezra and Thrawn are in a completely different galaxy,
And
which
they
opens it up, because up until this point, we've only, from a Star Wars thing, we've only known it to be in a galaxy far, far away, not a universe far, far away. Now we have multiple galaxies. Therefore, we have a Star Wars universe.
yes, that intrigued me. And then also when they mentioned it was across time and space, that also intrigued me. And that
Yeah.
the world between worlds,
Yes.
which was introduced in Rebels, and we haven't really seen it much outside of Rebels. We didn't see it too much other than that. I want to get more into time jumps and time aspects. And I think you said like we're gonna get something with time dilation, time manipulation. So all of that stuff is intriguing to me. So it's that's what I meant by this episode wasn't that flashy. It wasn't like it jumped out at me. But upon further, thinking about it and then also just like, oh, what is the implications of these things that
Yeah.
have been introduced? I want to see all of those things. Oh, speaking of, I want to get your thoughts on this real quick. We talked about the voice of people being important to the character. What do you think about the live action characters? Because I was thinking about this as I was watching the live action characters having different actors than the animated
Sure.
appearances, and specifically Hera and Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Did it change the feeling for you, especially with Ahsoka? Because Ashley Eckstein in the animated shows, her voice is much higher pitched
Yeah.
than Rosario Dawson, and it made it feel like she's older to me than she was in Clone Wars and in Rebels. What did you think about their voices, both those two
Well,
characters?
to this day, I don't know why they couldn't have trained Ashley Eckstein to be the live action Ahsoka.
That would have been great.
I think they were going off of star power.
Yes, 100%.
And I don't have anything against Rosario Dawson's portrayal. She's just an older, more hardened character than we've seen previously.
Right.
But then again, the last time we saw her, she was pulled from the world between worlds. Well, basically, she was pulled from that Sith temple by Ezra in the World Between Worlds episode. She was saved by him, and then they parted ways. Essentially, I assume she went back to the past, to the last moment that she was, but like after the temple had been demolished. And then there's this gap of time, and we don't know really what happened for her up until her next appearance, which was in Mando. So there's a large gap of time when, she was doing her own thing.
Yeah, and there's a little bit because I think you know this. Clone Wars had a break where they basically got canceled. Then they came back for another season. That was after Rebels. So all of Rebels happens, and there was another episode or another season of Clone Wars. So in my mind, I'm still trying to piece together the timeline also of Ahsoka has a huge role in that. And that takes place before Rebels.
See, that's interesting.
Yeah, because
Rebels ends after the events of Return of the Jedi.
Yes. Right. Yeah, and there's a time jump there. Yeah. Right. Because Rebels starts at the beginning of A New Hope, or I'm sorry, right before New Hope, like around Rogue One timeline, and then it ends after Return of the Jedi, that's where Mando takes place. So yeah, all of these, like I said, it's gonna make sense. I trust Filoni.
Yeah,
but it is kind of.
I would definitely recommend everyone look up the timeline because it is pretty messy.
Yes.
You were talking about the characters though in live action. I really like Hera. I really like. Is it Mary Elizabeth Winstead? Is that her?
Yes, correct.
Okay,
correct. And she's married to Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor, and they have a kid together.
Yeah. Although, I mean, he left his wife for her. I mean, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
I saw a TikTok. Someone was saying they showed a picture of the two of them together, and they were like, brother and sister. And I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. No, she's great. She brought some cake to the party, and we're happy about that. A lot of people take issue with the way she looks, but in terms of like her green contacts and the hot yellow pants, and ultimately I don't have an issue with it at all. I think she was great. She still had the motherly nurturing instincts that Hera had in the show in Rebels. And she still seems like she is capable of having a good time. I like her banter with Chopper. Love that we got live action Chopper. He's freaking awesome. Probably was my favorite part of episode 2. But I really like it. I have one issue with Hera, and I want to bring this up because otherwise I'll probably forget. Why does she think Thrawn is dead? Because she knows that Ezra and Thrawn were on the same Star Destroyer or whatever it was that the Purgles had connected themselves to, and then they all shot off into unknown regions. At least that's what they thought. So if they think that Ezra's alive, why doesn't she think that Thrawn is alive too? Like, to me, that was an unnecessary bit of dialogue, and it also just contradicted everything that had transpired in Rebels for her own character. So I didn't understand that. I wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, I just made up the story that, oh yeah, she thinks Ezra took care of Thrawn. Like, oh yeah, he killed him, and we don't have to worry about Thrawn anymore. Like,
okay,
that's the way that I pieced it together. But we may get flashback. We may get something that talks about that a little bit more. But yeah, that was not 100% clear about why she did that. And speaking of not 100% clear. So the ending of part 1, Master and Apprentice, Sabine gets stabbed. She's dueling the apprentice.
Right.
And now we already knew she's in the rest of the series. We know that from the trailers. We had seen her with the short hair.
Yeah, she's got that plot armor.
Yeah, we knew Sabine is not going to die. But they ended it like it was a cliffhanger, like, oh, is she dead? And any other person we've ever seen impaled with a lightsaber basically has died. And the next episode, medical droid, she's back. There was no problem. There's no issue. I was like, what was the point of that? There was no drama. Like, there was nothing. I'd never felt she was going to die at any point. But the way that the episode was structured, it made it seem like, oh, you don't know if she's going to live or not. So that, to me, was like,
it's kind of funny who lives or dies in Star Wars when it comes to lightsaber battles, because in the same battle in Phantom Menace during the Duel of the Fates, after Qui-Gon does get killed and gets stabbed and dies, and he's like the only person that happens to, right? Darth Maul gets chopped into pieces. He's in literal pieces, but still manages to live on in future properties. So Qui-Gon got the real short end of the stick in that regard, and which is really unfortunate.
Short end of the lightsaber.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So, it's seemingly an easy fix to survive a lightsaber wound. So, yeah.
I did like the Hu Yang in the next episode, Toil and Trouble, when she had that scar, and he's like, oh, I saw you were repaired or whatever. Like, he made some droid pun.
He was also he was throwing some shade at her. He was talking about how she has almost no force sensitivity whatsoever, the lowest aptitude for it or something. I was like, oh man, he's going hardcore right now.
No emotion. Like, he was just like, well, these are the facts. You don't have it.
You suck.
Yeah. So I thought that was great. But the other big thing about part 2, like I said, Toil and Trouble, which was not directed by Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni wrote every episode, but he only directed the first one, and then looks like episode 5. The rest of these directors I'm going down the list look like all Mando directors. But the second episode, part 2, Toil and Trouble, the big thing in the second episode that stood out to me, besides the map stuff and trying to find all the Thrawn and stuff, was the Ahsoka Merrick duel, which we saw from the lightsaber that Merrick is or was an Inquisitor. That's the big thing about that. But who is Merrick is the big question on
a lot of people's minds. That's a big point of contention on TikTok and whatever. A lot of theories being thrown around.
I'm interested to see, because outside of that, we didn't get a whole lot of lightsaber or intense duels besides Ahsoka in the hallway scene, like you said in the first one.
Yeah,
but I want to see who this Merrick character is, and I think they're specifically hiding the features
Yeah.
because I think we're supposed to believe it's a man, but I my theory is
I think
I
I know
think
where you're
we're
going with this. Yeah.
I think it's going to be revealed because um there is a and I'm trying to think. I think this is only in Clone Wars. There is a former Jedi that gets kind of oust, ousted or outed. Um,
Well,
Barris Offee.
yes. I was gonna say doesn't she frame Ahsoka for
Yes, and that's what
the
causes
bombing
her to
of the
leave.
temple or something, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what causes Ahsoka to leave the Jedi Order.
Right.
Was the Jedi not trusting her? But that there's a lot of like who becomes an Inquisitor is also very interesting to me because they've really built that out. Rebels to go back, sorry. Rebels is where the Inquisitors were introduced. The Inquisitors were created for Rebels. They've really fleshed it out in both of the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor video games, and then the comic books, the Darth Vader comic book specifically, where he's training the Inquisitorius. And we saw some in Obi-Wan also.
Yep, that's right.
So I think she fits the most of who was a former Jedi, who could become an Inquisitor. And like I said, the fact that they're not revealing anything about the face at all, to me is like, okay, we're gonna have this mystery revealed to be, oh, you thought it was a guy, but it's a girl, baby. Look, that's a woman, man.
Yeah, I gotta say, I think of the theories that are out there, people are saying it's Ezra. I think that's total bullcrap.
Oh,
There's
what?
no chance it's Ezra. Why would he be doing that?
Yeah,
That's
that
so
makes no
stupid.
sense.
There's a lot of theories that it's Star Killer, that it's
Oh, yes, I
Galen
saw that.
Merrick, right?
Yes. Mhm. Which
And
Sam Witwer, one of my
well, and so
favorite.
here's something that sort of lends itself to that theory, that in that episode 2 in the credits, there is a voice credit for Sam Witwer in that. So, but then
Yes,
again,
yes.
Merrick does not talk
Right, right.
that I remember. So unless it was like some sort of guttural, like he's getting voice credit for uh, like I don't know,
Right.
but that's definitely sort of like leading the charge on that. But I'm with you. I think the more logical choice to have be part of that would be someone who's tied to Ahsoka in her backstory, and a very important part of why she's no longer part of the Jedi Order.
And
So
did you get the sense that Ahsoka knew who it was? Because just the way she was acting and like at the end, I just felt like she had this stare and this sense of I know who that is.
That's a
And
good point. Yeah,
she
especially
didn't
when she didn't even like flinch. She just sort of like slightly
right.
dodged to
Oh yeah. And that
but
was yeah,
that I mean
that was
that was
great.
first of all, that was badass.
Yeah.
But also it was an understanding, like you're saying. Like
Yes.
she like
Right.
knows who this person is. She's like,
Right.
I'm
Because
gonna
and that's the thing, I always love when they have stories where, fighters are like, "I know that fighting style, like, I've fought this person many times, and I know their ins and outs." And man, try not to spoil Clone Wars for you, and I'm thinking about so no, you saw the Darth Maul Obi-Wan fight at the end of Rebels, right?
Yes. But I
Okay.
remember telling you, I was like, I thought it was gonna be longer.
Yeah, but that was a case
That's
where
what
it's
you
like
said.
they knew each other's fighting styles so well, and they had fought each other, many times, and to the point where, and I want you to go back and when you get a chance, because it's on YouTube, you can watch the fight. There's a moment where Darth Maul tries to do the same blow that he used to kill Qui-Gon,
Mhm.
and Obi-Wan, he's like, I've seen that move. You've done it
Right.
before. Immediately counters it, and then that's how he kills him. So I always love that back and forth, that chess game of fighters, and I know your fighting style. I know uh, I've witnessed this before. So I want to see who Merrick is. We'll definitely get that going forward. And like you said, Chopper was a standout for me on this Toil and
That whole
Trouble
sequence of
episode.
them putting the
Yeah,
tracker
yeah, that
on
was
that
great.
hyperdrive ship, oh my gosh, that was so
Yes,
fun and so funny to
yeah,
have like a droid who we don't truly fully understand. We can
right.
kind of make out some words, but it was enough to be like, oh man, Chopper is so fun.
Yes. Also, Rebels creation, Dave Filoni creation. So yeah, man, it feels good to be back in this Rebels universe. You didn't leave it not so long ago. You just finished,
It's
but
true, and that's a benefit of mine is that it's still very, very fresh for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
for me, I was watching Rebels as it aired, and so I want to say the last episode was 2017. Oh no, I'm sorry. Final episode aired March 5th, 2018. So that was the last time I've watched Rebels, and it just feels good to be back in this Rebels universe. And as many of you viewers know, and some do not know, my son was named after Ezra Bridger, so there's a connection with me personally and my family. So I want to see what happens, what continues to happen. It was cool to see the Ezra hologram, and where he's, what role he's going to play in the larger Star Wars universe. I bet she's going to be in that Dave Filoni movie. I
Oh
think
yeah.
Ezra's
Yeah,
going to
for
have a big
sure.
role to play.
For sure. I personally think that we're probably not going to see much of Thrawn and Ezra in this show. I think that it'll be a lot of
saving.
Yeah, exactly. And then whatever reveal will happen will be right towards the end, creating a nice cliffhanger for building that conflict of whatever the movie is going to be, that crossover movie.
Oh, nice.
That's what I think.
I'd like to see that. Yes, definitely.
I loved seeing the Phantom too, by the way.
Yes.
It got me really excited because, I mean, you have to assume that we're going to see the Ghost at some point, especially since we saw the Phantom.
Yes.
But that it got me like giddy. Like I really want to see the Ghost, to see that ship in live action. Like, I know technically we have seen it, but it's been in the distance. Like, it was in the final fight of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
I think it was even also in Rogue One.
Yeah, I think it was.
I read something about that briefly. But like it's like was off in the distance. You had to squint. Right. Like, it wasn't something that was like front and center. And now
they did. It was like an Easter egg. It wasn't like, hey, there it is.
Yeah. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. Speaking of Easter eggs, check out my Star Trek shirt. This is the most inappropriate shirt to wear for a Star Wars podcast episode. But I like to be funny, and we
love both universes. Yeah, so there's no
and Vactor and I, we were previously doing Treknopod for Star Trek podcast, and we had taken an extended hiatus. Who knows if we'll come back to it, but life is hard right now, and that's where we're at. So
yeah, there's room for both universes in
that's
the
right.
Vactor-Verse.
Yeah. I don't believe you should be like a fan of one and not the other. I think if you just are a fan of sci-fi, if you're a fan of great stories, then you should be a fan of both.
Yes. That's what, and I think me and you are both on that same level of, we want good stories and we want good characters. And I think Ahsoka is starting out on a good note. These first two episodes, I like I said, you and I both trust Filoni, so I think we're in good hands. I think this show is going to be a delight and a treat. So I liked the first two episodes of Ahsoka. And I think, Shoff, we're going to have a great time talking here each week. We're not going to be doing 2 episodes. That was just this premiere. But we're going to be back weekly talking about Ahsoka and sharing our thoughts. So we hope you will join us every week here until the end. Like Shoff said, please, if you have a thought or you got a question, call him out. Call Shoff out in the comments.
Also,
let us know.
Speaking of great times to be had, in the meantime, between now and the next episode that you listen to, do yourself a favor. Go to Google, type in The Voyeur, and specifically, you're going to be looking for scenes with Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who plays Sabine Wren. And if you want to see her in next to nothing, that's my gift to you. That's my gift to you, folks.
Oh, wow. Shoff giving out gifts to our viewers and listeners. So that's a great reason to come back next week. Shoff will be on the lookout for you, as he did on this episode every episode.
That's right.
So thank you very much for joining us. And until next time, live long and Ahsoka. I don't know.